Kevin, you're very caring. You consistently show up for the people in your life. You're strong. I look at you and I see an honest man of integrity. And I know that February is a commemorative month because you went through a transformation, right? You weren't always this person. I want to know what the heck happened. And Kevin Lanning, how did you rise above?
So first off, thank you very much. And to the audience, this is Annabella Rockwell. She is going to be hosting the interview today. Normally it's Kevin Lanning, but I want to give my fans, my viewers, my listeners, who I'm so grateful for, an opportunity to learn more about me. And so thank you for coming in. Hosting today. I wouldn't want anyone else doing it more than you. So, and thank you for the kind words. So I'm going to have 7 years of sobriety on the 19th of February. What's today, the 11th?
The 10th.
Today's the 10th.
Congratulations.
So in 9 days, I'll have 7 years of sobriety. And sobriety has taught me all of the things that you said in the beginning there. Mm-hmm. How I show up, how I manage relationships, how I treat others, and along come with that and those relationships is, empathy, consistency. Consistency is a huge thing for me. For a very long period in my life, there was zero consistency. And I say that to set up your question about how I rise above. So this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We hear a lot about red flags in relationships, but what about the green flags? Sign of a great friend, a great partner. Therapy has helped me recognize these signs, not only in other people, but in myself as well. I started using BetterHelp therapy while in sobriety, and it has been an absolute game changer for my mental health. I used to have trouble with setting boundaries, people pleasing. Therapy has helped me advocate for myself and build healthier relationships in my life. I love BetterHelp's convenience. Everything is done online. There's no commute. You have access to over 30,000 licensed therapists. And if you want to switch to a new therapist, you can do so at any time at no extra cost. Learn more about your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/riseabove today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/riseabove. Prior to 7 years ago, there's really no other way to say it other than I was a drug addict. I abused drugs and alcohol. So you could say I'm an alcoholic, drug addict, just to relate to the audience. And there was a time in my life where I had very low self-esteem and some deep-rooted issues going on deep down, whether you want to call it a void from within, whether you want to call it past trauma that had taken place in your life. I lived with those things on a daily basis. And in sobriety, I've learned there are different symptoms of alcoholism. Alcoholism doesn't necessarily mean that alcohol is my problem. Now, when you get help and you build a community, a sober community, clearly the common denominator is that you all drank alcoholically, right? And yes, alcohol is a problem, but that is not the root of the problem. And I learned that in recovery. And, that void I lived with up until I got sober. I didn't even know, I had zero awareness. I didn't know there was any kind of deep-rooted trauma going on in my life, causing me to be insecure, living in fear, living in resentment. Someone said the slightest thing to me, I would take it personal and I'd make it all about me. And I was very self-centered, only cared about me. Mm-hmm. Any relationship that I had prior to getting sober was, what am I going to get out of it?
Transactional.
Transactional, yes. But then on the flip side, I was changing my behavior from person to person so that you would like me. I didn't know, my identity was completely lost. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I even liked. I didn't know anything about myself. And I realized that in sobriety. So, 7 years ago, I decided to take action and rise above and change the way I was living. I was at a crossroads in my life where scary things, scary events were starting to take place as a result of my drinking and drugging, to the point where it really started to scare me. And I was at this crossroads where I had ruined some things in my life at this point back in 2018, but I was at a crossroads. If I continued, there was no turning back, and I wouldn't really be able to recoup the things that I had lost if I continued drinking and drugging. Or I was at a point where, okay, yeah, I lost some things, some relationships, etc., but I can still bounce back and recoup some of those things. And I'll be able to deal with the smaller things that I lost in the relationships, etc. So for me, rising above was not just sitting there waiting for something to come to me, like a big break, and I always thought while I was drinking and drugging, I just need a really nice car. I just really need a hot girl who's very outgoing and everyone gets along with, and she's going to complete me. I just need a really big house. That's all I need. And then I can stop the drinking and the drugging. I would always these things in my head. And I didn't get all those things, but I got smaller, watered down things of those. And I started to realize that it wasn't filling that void.
Yeah. The external doesn't fill the hole.
Exactly.
You.
And it was when rising above for me means stopping, practicing humility, which eventually equates to awareness, getting humble, asking for the help, and taking action, putting a plan together, consistency. So all of those things for me in my story was how I rose above. And for a very long time, and I think this is just what our society tells us, I always fought alcoholism and the disease for a very long time. And I didn't know what humility was. Humility made me feel like ants were crawling on me. Like I was crawling in my skin if I was ever trying to practice humility or even thinking about it. And it was such a tough thing for me to do. And then when I did it, it wasn't that bad. And things got easier. And then I got 2 weeks sober. Then I put my hand up again and shared with other men specifically. Like, no, I'm not going to say the word. I don't want to get filtered on YouTube, but like, man on man relationship, two men having a relationship like that,
there's
no.
a stigma.
Yeah.
There's a fear.
Hell no. Like I'm not doing that, but it helped me. And then when I did that, it kind of lightened the burden with my alcoholism. And I was able to talk to other people about what was going on. So to me, that was rising above. Sorry for the very long-winded answer, but I wanted to make sure I touched on everything there.
I think by society's standards, you kind of have it all together on paper, right? So while you were still drinking, like you could say, oh, you'd been like a D1 college athlete. You were an executive at a huge tech firm. Like you were in relationships, like, and I'd love for you to go into your childhood maybe a little bit. But before that, do you feel like the resume, if you will, kind of prevented you from being humble and admitting that maybe drugs and alcohol were a problem? And also I like that your story kind of a message is it's never too late and it's never too early to ask for help.
Yeah, that's a great question because the disease of alcoholism is that little devil on your shoulder for me. It's that voice that says, it's really not that bad. I'll go on a bender. Monday morning rolls around. I'm never doing drugs or drinking ever again. And then that devil is like, well, wait a minute. no, you hold an executive job in New York City. You're doing fine.
Yeah. You can't possibly have a problem. You're not homeless.
That was a huge thing for me. I thought alcoholics, drug addicts were living under, bypass on the highway, homeless, missing teeth. That's what I thought a drug addict was. And for a long time, I differentiated myself. I'm like, no, I have a nice apartment in New York. I have a position at work that I hold that's an executive position. I have all these friends. I have all of these beautiful people in my life, and I don't have a problem. Yet I'm killing myself on a daily basis. There's so many times that I was so close to situations I was in. If things went, the wrong way, I could have died.
Yeah.
In many situations. So to answer your question, I justified through I remember I didn't even have the money to do it. And I bought a brand new Cadillac in 2010.
Okay.
I don't know why I did it. I live, New York City. I just
Sober
bought
thoughts.
a brand new Cadillac. It was a CTS coupe. It was a really nice car. I bought it, could barely afford it, and it fixed me for about a week.
How much money did you spend on that Cadillac that only worked for 1 week?
That car, I don't recall. Maybe it was $50,000 or something like that.
That's a big
but I leased
ticket.
it. I didn't pay for it up front. I could barely make the monthly payments because my drug habit was astronomical. My drinking bills every night were astronomical. The lifestyle I was living was living in New York City. It was a disaster. My life was a disaster, and it fixed me for about a week. I thought I was hot shit. I thought I got this car, status, I'm cool. And it was just because I was insecure deep down, and I wanted other people to like me because I didn't fit in. I felt like I didn't fit in, so I wanted to be part of. And then I realized it wasn't doing that for me.
When did that feeling start?
So that feeling started for me from when I can remember in college.
Okay.
In high school, I played sports. I played lacrosse and football.
Did you drink when you were in high school?
Yes.
Did you do drugs?
Yeah. I smoked weed.
Okay.
On the weekends.
Yeah.
And
But was it a problem?
Not really.
You weren't.
No.
Yeah. Nothing consequential.
Now, if I went out, I use drugs, and I'm using, right? If you take drugs away from me for 1 day during that usage period, I'm going to be thinking about the drug nonstop. It's going to be my higher power. It's going to be the number one thing, and it is going to occupy all of the space in my head. And it's going to create unmanageability. It's going to create total chaos in my head. When am I going to be able to get it again? And just sitting there, all right, well, maybe I should just try to sleep and take something to sleep so that when I wake up, it's time to use again. Because I don't want to face anyone else. I don't want to be part of life. I don't want to show up at work. I don't want to do anything until I can get that drug. When I was in high school and you told me, hey, we're not drinking this weekend, we're going somewhere where you can't drink or something, I was like, okay, cool. Let's go do it. And I wouldn't even think about the drink. So that's where I differentiate where it was started to become alcoholic and where I became an addict.
Yeah, there was a turning point.
There was a turning point. So I did well in high school with sports. And I feel like I do believe alcoholism, drug addiction is a disease. And you're born with it. Now, when it pops up, that's your own journey. I do believe there were other things, other symptoms that I like to call it, that I used to fill that void, those deep-rooted issues that I had, to mask them, to cover them up. I got recognition playing lacrosse and football. I did really well. And I got a lot of attention. I got attention from friends, from girls, from teachers. So I felt like I was hot shit. Mm-hmm. And it did it for me. It filled that void momentarily, of course, but it was longer than, the car that I got for a week. It was an ongoing thing. And
it progressed.
Yeah, it progressed. And through high school, I didn't really act out with drugs or alcohol as much. Did I drink more than the average high school kid? Yeah, of course. Did I smoke weed more than the average high school kid? Yeah. But if I didn't have it, it was fine. Like, I went on with my life. So then I get to college. Now I play football in college. It's a Division I program. And I remember showing up to this program, summer camp, my freshman year, and walking out onto the field, and these guys were all twice my size. They were all 5 times faster than I was. And the fear set in. The fear of, I am the king of half measures.
Okay.
So, oh yeah, you want to have me come to your school? Sure, sign that. Yeah, I'm committed to playing, football for your program. Yo, Kev's going to blah, blah, and like, Kev's going to Albany to play football. I was like, okay, yeah. But then now you have to start doing the workout program.
Mm-hmm. And you never thought that you wouldn't be like the best or the biggest?
I knew I wasn't going to be the biggest, but I thought that my talent would allow me to stand out right from the beginning, right from the jump. But when it came time to actually, it's like an athlete. They get this big contract, but then when they have to go and actually perform and work for the money that they just got, not that I was given a contract like that, but the fear would set in for me.
Mm-hmm. What was the fear that you wouldn't be able to rise to the occasion? Like, what were those fears as 18-year-old Kevin arriving on campus for the first time? You're in an entirely new environment. You're like you were a big fish in a small pond, and now you're in this new pond, and everyone's a big fish from their pond. So, like, what were some of the fears? Well,
the fear is, it's crazy because I knew that I had a little bit of insecurity. I was aware that I was a little insecure at that time. Would I admit it to anyone? Absolutely not. My fear was I am going to get zero recognition because I was at the bottom of the depth chart.
Yeah, your ego needed that.
I knew
you needed the attention.
My void needed to be filled. I knew that there were deep-rooted insecurities, and if I didn't have that external validation, God only knows what's going to happen. And fast forward, I end up getting hurt. I hurt my shoulder, and then I'm prescribed painkillers, Vicodin.
Mm-hmm. What year was this?
Sophomore.
Okay, yeah.
I get prescribed painkillers. And I have shoulder surgery. And it's funny, I'd never share this really. I actually don't think I've ever shared it publicly. But I had an opportunity to go back to play football.
Yeah.
And I told them that it's worse than it is. And I'm not coming back.
Did you regret that?
Yes, because that's a tough question to answer. Because if I were to say yes, I do regret it, that means I would have continued playing football. Could have stayed out of trouble. But then on the flip side, maybe it would have pushed off my drug and alcohol use further down the road, and I would have gotten sober later. Or so
did you resent yourself? Yeah.
I do regret making that decision because I still, spoiler alert, I stopped playing football. I end up going down the opiate line in college, to Percocet to OxyContin. When I discovered OxyContin, that was what fueled my addiction. That was just different for me. When I first took an OxyContin, all the pain of, or rather the fear of, am I going to fit in? Am I not going to fit in? Am I going to be good enough? Will I be able to pass my classes? Am I saying the right things when I'm like, I would be in social situations and I'm like, oh, what I just said was so dumb. I mean, people get those thoughts. That's, who are an alcoholic but it was all the time with me.
Your anxiety was consuming you.
Yes, big time. And all of that went away when I took an OxyContin. And I felt so good. I could have convinced you that I can run for president and I was going to win. Like that's really the confidence that it gave me. Mm-hmm. And I never looked back from that point on. And for me, it was the Holy Grail. It was God for me. OxyContin was God for me. It healed me. It took the fear away. It took the resentment away. If you didn't hold the door for me, it's like, dude, don't even worry about it. It's all good. You have your life going on. I have mine. You're not thinking about me. All good. Acceptance was so easy on OxyContin. OxyContin is expensive. My prescriptions end up running out. And I am now in college and I have to be able to supply, be able to fund my aggressive drug habit that I have in college, probably like 19 years old. I'm drinking, I'm smoking weed, but Oxys was top priority. If I didn't have Oxys, I wasn't going out. If I didn't have Oxys, I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't talking to anyone. I was laying in my bed until I could get Oxys again. I am at a bar one night and I run into a guy and we're talking and he is the manager of my school bookstore. And immediately I'm complaining about the prices of books, how much they're charging, economics textbooks, statistics textbooks, $300. What does your school bookstore get them for? Is there a middleman? The school bookstore is the middleman. What's the source? Where are they? What website are they getting them from? Basically trying to come up with a get rich quick scheme to fuel my drug habit, biting at any opportunity there is to make money. And I was looking to go as far as let's put the school bookstore out of business. Let's basically start our own underground bookstore and put them out of business and make a shit ton of money. And he's like, well, the school bookstore has a lot of inventory. They don't take their inventory and they keep it in a warehouse off campus. And I have a key to that warehouse. And he was like, you pick up what I'm putting down? I'm like, yeah, I get it. He's like, let's continue to talk. And I said, okay. So we talk. Now I have a network. I know all the athletes. So there are probably around 1,200 athletes or so, maybe 1,500 athletes at my school. Now, just from working out at the gym and seeing them, I've become friendly with all of them. So I had a nice network of people. And I went around and I took 10 orders for textbooks only, the high value books, 3 economics books, 4 statistics books, etc. And I go back to him. I said, hey, I have 10 books that I'd like to, can I go to the warehouse and grab them? He goes, yeah, sure. And gave me a date time. It was unlocked. I go there, pull my Jeep around, grab the 10 textbooks. Him and I had an agreement that we will split them 50-50, cash only. They pay for the books cash only. So I go sell these books back to these people, call it about $100 a book. We make $1,000, $500 for him, $500 for me. Now he had said that they don't take inventory, but I was a little weary of that. I find it very hard to believe that a school bookstore wasn't taking inventory of all these books that they have in the warehouse. So I wanted to make sure that these people, when they return these 10 books, these 10 different people, there were no issues when they went to go return them to sell them back to the school bookstore. Semester finishes, no issues from anyone. Wow. Like, great.
You got away with it.
Next semester rolls around. Let's do 100 books. It's $10,000, $5,000, $5,000. The next year rolls around. we're like, let's do. So my school, they had quarter classes. So it was, if it was 10 weeks a semester, it was condensed into 5 weeks. Or however long a semester is, 12 weeks, whatever. Half of a semester, they would condense a full semester into a half a semester and call it a quarter class. So we would get books for the quarter class, supply books for quarter class, full semester, winter classes. We stayed, we didn't go home.
Okay.
And then spring semester, spring quarter.
Wow.
But there's quarters on each side of the semester.
Yeah.
And then summer classes.
Oh my God. So you're just like around the clock.
Yes. Doing runs. And where our network is growing. So where did I get textbooks half off from Kevin, blah, 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 blah. And then, people, the demand grew. So, and the supply was plentiful. It was unlimited.
Was anyone questioning where did you get these books?
People were asking.
Yeah.
And I just said, I have a friend.
Okay. But they didn't care. Yeah.
No one really. When you're getting a $300 textbook.
You're a college student.
For $150 and keeping the $150 that your parents gave you, you're not saying shit. So we do this the second year. We pull in $200,000 cash. And now at this point, I'm like, fuck this dude, fuck the manager. He's going to get like 35, 40%. And then I'll take 60, 65% for myself. Like I'm taking all the risk.
Of $200,000.
Of $200,000, yeah. It's like I took like 130, he took like 70.
Oh my God.
And then I would tell him we just made 140 so that it looked like it was 50-50.
Did he ever find out?
I don't know. No, he did not, to my knowledge. To my knowledge, no, but I have a reason to believe that maybe he dropped a dime because we end up getting caught eventually. But so we end up doing it now for the third year. And when we do it, same thing for the fall semester. Spring semester rolls around and I go to do a run. I go in there. Now I could carry maybe 5 to 10 textbooks at a time when I'm pulling my truck around to this warehouse, stacking them into my truck. So I do the first round, 5 or 10 books. I put them in my car. I go back, grab the next 5, 10 books. And as I turn around, there's a lady standing there with 2 police officers.
Ooh.
My heart dropped. She looks at me. She goes, I'll never forget it. She's like, this is where our books have been going for the last few years. And she was on the verge of crying. And she starts firing questions away at me. How long have you been doing this for? Like you nearly almost put us out of business.
Yeah.
And then she went into, how many jobs were lost because of what you were doing?
Oh.
And
right where it hurts.
I'll be very honest. In the moment, I was not remorseful whatsoever. I was a young kid. I was on drugs. I didn't give a fuck. And I just said, no, it wasn't me. And then she kept asking questions. And I just shut up. I didn't say anything. Then they handcuffed me. They brought me to the precinct. I got arrested. They brought me to the precinct. And then I'm in there and I'll tell you why I'm sharing all of this. I used to take pride in like this big scam that I ran. And, through recovery, through the process of, getting to know the root cause of why you had to fill that void. Like what was the void? I've learned that, there's a process called the amends process. And she said there were people that lost jobs. Well, how do I know it wasn't a single mother who had 2 children and the hours were just perfect for her so that she could pick her kids up after school. And then she lost her job because they didn't have the funds to pay her anymore. So they laid her off. And then she was out of work for like a month or 2 trying to find another job, maybe couldn't find another job. Yeah. And those kids were impacted, innocent kids, because of what I was doing.
Yeah, when you're doing drugs, you can't see that through. You don't think about your actions like that, like the repercussions.
No, you don't. And listen, I'll admit it. I don't care. There was a period even after this all happened, after college when I graduated, because I went on to drink and drug for years longer till I got sober. I used to take pride in that story. And it's so immature and I'm like ashamed. I'm ashamed of it, but I want to share it because there are people out there that are on the verge of doing something like this and not thinking about the consequences that could take place. Bless you. Not thinking about the consequences that take place.
Mm-hmm.
Not thinking about the people they could potentially impact. And make a long story short, I end up getting kicked out of school and they want me to leave the university.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I hadn't gone to an arraignment. I end up getting out. I get bailed out. No, I had to appear back in court 45 days later after I was arrested. And during that 45-day period, I wasn't found guilty of the crime. They kicked me out of school.
Okay.
And I had gotten an attorney and I brought the paperwork showing that I was kicked off the school. I had a week to get off campus, whatever. And he had said to me, have you ever heard of innocent until proven guilty? And I'm like, yeah, of course. He said, well, you haven't been found guilty in the court of law and they kicked you out. That doesn't make sense. Now, in your contract, I have to look over your contract with the university to make sure that just based off of allegations, they could potentially terminate you from the school. And that was not in the contract. So they made a mistake. My attorney ends up calling the school, speaks with the dean. I get enrolled back in school and they drop all charges against me.
Oh my gosh.
So I end up going in front of the judge.
Uh-huh.
The judge is looking over everything and he was like, I see what happened here. And, I'm thinking I'm walking out and then it's the ego and the pride and I got away with it. I made all this money. It was the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. And I wish, this is crazy to say, I think it would have been a felony actually, based off, if they could prove the number, I was caught, I believe, with 10 books.
Mm-hmm.
But if they could go back and link me to the other ones and all the other money I made off of it, it definitely would have been a felony. So I wish I got caught because the pain and the suffering that took place after it, following, was 10 times worse. And so I go in front of the judge. The judge says, listen, you're not leaving my courtroom without any kind of repercussion. I mean, it was still a slap on the wrist. He gave me an ACOD, stay out of trouble for 6 months, and this all gets squashed. And I had to do, I think, about 100 hours of community service, which was nothing. And it was a slap on the wrist.
Did you graduate?
I did.
So you're like a 22-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
You made all this money. You got away with it.
All this money that I made came in and went right out.
Straight to your habit.
Nothing to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
So continue. Sorry.
But you have an ego and you've proved something to yourself.
Yeah.
That you can do something crazy and you can get away with it. So how does your addiction progress after this?
Yeah. So
were you scared at all? Were you like, maybe I should slow down? I got lucky.
I knew there was a monster, an addiction monster growing inside of me. And it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Was I scared? Slightly. Was I scared enough to stop? Clearly, no. And what fueled it was that ego, exactly what you just talked about, how I was able to do that scheme. And I got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm untouchable. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen to me. I'm going to pull myself out of this before it's too late. I'll never jump to heroin. I'll never jump to fentanyl. I'll never do any of that. Oxys are prescribed by a doctor. They're okay. I'm not blaming Big Pharma. I am not blaming doctors. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm taking full responsibility. I made the decision to use it. But that's just the justification that I used in my head.
Yeah, the lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get out of, I land a job immediately right after school. I did an internship and they hired me right out of school. So now I'm working in New York City.
More proof that you're invincible.
More proof that I'm invincible. And I now discover, well, I start working at this executive, this high pressure job in New York City. And I have phenomenal health insurance. And it's probably like 08, 09. The pharmacies weren't all linked either. So I quickly learned that I could go to I have health insurance. I could go to Dr. A.
Uh-huh.
I could fill a prescription.
What did you say was wrong with you? Just your shoulder hurt?
So I had a scar on my shoulder. It's a pretty big scar.
Okay.
Whenever I would show that to a doctor and then I told them that I played football,
they'd be like, oh, you must be in
he's
so
not a
much
drug. There is no way this guy is a drug addict.
This D1 athlete who graduated has this great job.
Yep. Yeah. He's wearing a suit into my doctor's office because he's coming from work on his lunch break in New York City. Uh-huh. He doesn't look like he has a problem.
Because only homeless people are drug addicts.
Exactly.
You can't possibly be wearing a suit.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So
this system, so you figure out you can get a prescription, you can get it filled, and then what? You can go to another pharmacy. How does this work?
Yeah, I can go and get. So I was getting either Percocet or OxyContin from these doctors.
Okay. And
that was what I was using. And I would go to these doctors. I would go to Dr. A. I could go to CVS in New York City and fill my prescription. Mm-hmm. Then I could go to Dr. B, another doctor, and then go to Walgreens in New York City, because all of the pharmacies were not, there wasn't an aggregate platform for them, database for them to see. At Walgreens, the pharmacist, oh, well, Kevin, yesterday you just filled 180 OxyContins at CVS. And my insurance wasn't saying anything either. And I was willing to risk that. I didn't care. Like, that's essentially risking your job.
Yeah.
I didn't care. Then I go to a mom and pop pharmacy in New York. Then I'm in New York City. It's a boat ride right over to Hoboken, New Jersey. Now let's go to CVS in New Jersey, because CVS New Jersey and CVS New York aren't aggregated. This was a huge problem.
What about Dwayne Reed? Did you ever go to Dwayne Reed?
Dwayne Reed, Walgreens. So Dwayne Reed's and Walgreens were linked because it was the same company. I found that out real quick. I mean, this was another thing that I took pride in. My ability to
clever.
Understand the system, know how it works. I went in one time and the insurance thing caught up to me. And they said, one of the pharmacists said, hey, your insurance didn't cover this. They said I spoke with them on the phone and they said you just filled a prescription. And then the lady kind of just gave me the eye and didn't report me or anything. And she was like, I need to call the doctor and just confirm everything. Do you want to hang out for a few? And then I just left. I was like, yeah, I'll hang out. And I just booked it out of there. Never went back to that doctor and made sure I never went back to, I believe it was a mom and pop pharmacy. I just made sure I never went back to that pharmacy ever again. Then I learned you could pay cash for them. So insurance isn't even involved at that point. So I was paying cash for them, and Oxys.
How much?
They weren't a lot. I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
They, a couple $100 to fill the prescription. Okay. At a pharmacy.
How long would 180 pills last you?
So I was getting 180 sometimes. I was getting 240 sometimes. I think the most I got was 240. So let's say I got 240, and I'm just making this up. I don't remember exactly what I was paying for them. Let's say I paid $1,000 for 240 Oxys. I would take 40. They were going at that time $1 every 2 milligrams. They went up to $1 a milligram. So like 80 milligram OxyContins were going for $80. This was the time where they were probably $40 a pill or something like that. And I would sell them to cover that $1,000. I would sell a few. Okay. Not all of them, of course, because I had my own problem.
Who would you sell them to?
Friends, people that I knew used Oxys. I had a network of druggies, because when I couldn't get them from a doctor, I'm calling Johnny and Mike and, I have a whole Rolodex of people that use oxys.
Was it like normal? Were a lot of your high functioning friends doing it too?
I would say my high functioning friends, some of them.
Okay.
I would say my home friends, most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Athletes, most of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was wild.
Do you think they all had similar, like, did it start because they all kind of had an injury or something? Went to a doctor?
So.
Or was it recreational, like they tried it at a party?
I think a lot of it was recreational.
Got it.
I think a lot of people do get hurt, and that's how I was really introduced to painkillers. But I do think it just takes one person amongst a crew to get hurt. True. They discover it, then they bring it. This is amazing. You got to try this.
Yeah.
And then it's very addictive.
That's why your circle matters.
That's why your circle matters. It absolutely does. And then they're basically supplying that circle until the supply runs out. Mm-hmm. And then everyone is going to doctors or a drug dealer to get it.
When did you ever cross the line of doctor to drug dealer for getting your pills?
Yeah. So I want to say in 2009, maybe end of 2008, 2009, prescriptions were all paper. Controlled substances, everything was all paper. Now it's electronic. So, and it's at an aggregated platform. So there is one database federally across the entire United States that can show from state to state. You can see in Delaware if you filled a prescription, or it's linked to your social security number.
Oh, so the laws now
have
officially
changed.
Catching up.
Yes.
At this point in time.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
No, that's why they went. So it wasn't this yet.
Okay.
Today, now it is all electronic. In 08, 09, I don't remember exactly when it was still paper. And what would happen is when you fill a prescription, let's say I filled 3 prescriptions in 1 week for OxyContin, 180 pills a piece. The pharmacies were required to then send all of those prescriptions into DC. And then they go through them. And there was a 6-month lag for them to catch up. So they were always working 6 months behind. So let's say February, and this is actually what happened. February, I want to say of 2009, it was either 2008 or 9, 2009. I fill over 2,000, it was like 2,500 pills or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
August of 2009. I think there were a lot of people doing this because they didn't contact me directly. Yeah. They did, but via mail.
Okay.
They sent a letter to my house, to my parents' house. And it had the gold. I'll never forget it. It had like the gold-plated U.S. government. It was the FDA, Food and Drug Administration.
Wow. You had a case manager in D.C. tracking you.
On this envelope. And it was to me. So I wasn't living at home. My father sees it. Oh, Kevin is getting a letter from the government. And he opened it. And it's basically said, we've learned that you filled, call it 2,500 pills in February 2009. It's August at this point. If you continue to do this, we will be taking, I don't remember the verbiage exactly, but they were going to come get me.
They had your number.
Yep. So that threw doctor shopping right out the window at that point.
Did your parents know what was going on, like before this? Or was this kind of their earth-shattering, oh my gosh, I think my kid has a problem moment?
So it wasn't for that specific instance when I got that letter and my father saw it. He didn't tell my mom. or maybe he did, and I don't know about it until my mom not to say anything.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But he had said to me, this is between us, like, you need to get yourself help. I mean, what was he going to do? I wasn't living under his roof, right? I mean, he had a very lengthy talk with me and like, what can I do to help you? Is it that bad? And I remember lying to him and saying, no, Dad, listen, I work at this company.
Yeah.
I was in an entry-level position, making maybe $40,000, $45,000, maybe $50,000 a year, living in New York. That's like unheard of to live.
Yeah.
And paycheck to paycheck, I needed to make extra money. And I was doing favors for other people and filling prescriptions, going and getting prescriptions for them. I just lied about it. And he was like, well, you better fucking stop.
Yeah.
Stop. My dad's old school. He's like, just cut the shit. Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter. Sweep it under the rug. Just stop.
But he wasn't naive either. He knew, because there were a couple run-ins prior to that where I was doing a lot of painkillers. I'll never forget this. And my brother was friends with a girl whose younger sister kind of hung out with me. Like, we were all friends. And she told her sister, Kevin's got a raging pill problem. She tells her sister tells my brother. My brother, out of concern, and I would have done the same thing, went to my parents and was like, listen, like, Kevin's taking pills. Like, and he told them. And then, of course, I talked them right off the ledge. Like, no, it's not that big of a deal. Like, this was from my injury. I was still hurt, blah, blah, blah. So they kind of knew something was up, and it was irregular. It wasn't like your normal drug use.
Had anyone in your family ever had a drug problem?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe they were kind of privy to the signs?
Yes, they were.
Okay. So
you asked before, when did it jump to drug dealer?
Yeah.
Following this come to Jesus moment with my father and the government, I then realized I need to get them from dealers on the street. And
not, I need help. I need to find another source.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where my addict thinking was.
Addiction.
I was so wrapped up in, I was a robot. And it's crazy because I still didn't think I had a problem.
Wow.
And so
sometimes
now
we're the last to know.
Yeah, we're always the last to know. Exactly. Or in denial, and we really know. And we're just, it's crazy, like, what society and how we're raised. And it's wild because I was thinking about this before, and I'll go back to the drug dealer excursions that I start to take. When I was thinking about, I've done work on my childhood and, being in sobriety over the last 7 years. And my parents were great parents. My parents were great parents. My father coached any sport I was involved in, me and my brothers. He would do his best to coach at least one of our seasons, each one of us, or be involved as an assistant coach if he was working a lot. Whatever it was, I remember he would take us to the playground. I do this with my daughter now and play, tag and like chase us and let us get away and us be running for our lives, hysterically laughing, and like stuff that I do with my daughter now. And like, it's bringing up a lot of memories. Like, I'm able to show up today for my daughter, and my dad showed up for me and my brothers no matter what. We were ever in trouble. He was showing up for us. My mom, same thing. Now, my thing is, if you ask my parents, they're going to turn around and say, Kevin hates us because we were so, like, my parents were strict.
Yeah.
They know that I love them, but they will say the one issue that Kevin had with growing up in our household was that we were too strict. My mom, my friends would all have to go home at like 2, 3 a.m. in like senior year.
Yeah.
I was like 12, 1.
Yes.
It was always before my friends.
Okay. So you felt like you're like missing out. That's part of this.
Yes.
I'm not a part of.
Yep.
Because my parents aren't letting me hang. When really your parents are like trying to protect you.
Yes.
Yeah. Because they're good parents.
Yes.
And they love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my mom, there were a few times where my mom, when I was young, where I would come home and my mom would be like, when it was just drinking.
Yeah.
She'd be like, were you drinking tonight? You seem drunk. I'm like, no, Mom, I don't drink. I don't know. Let me smell your breath. I'm like, what? Like,
I hated that.
did you get that?
Yes, I got that.
Okay. Yeah. And I got caught.
Oh.
I got caught in 7th grade.
You didn't have like toothbrush like ready to go or
No.
gum something?
You want to hear something disgusting? One time I was going home and I was so drunk. I was like, I can't get caught. Like next week is a huge party. I'm going to get grounded. I took cologne and I went to my mouth and sprayed it twice and then just walked right into my house. Didn't even get caught. It's disgusting.
Did it burn?
I highly recommend. I don't want to get, my video taken down on any platforms right now, but do not do that. Do not. You could get sick and something very bad could happen to you and you could end up in the hospital, potentially die. I mean, I don't know if it's that drastic, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. But anyway, so my parents were very strict and I resented them for a very long time. And I looked at society. My parents were, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were very open and willing. My father played sports, grew up, I think, in a household where it was, you don't really share your feelings too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him adapting to current times. Now, it wasn't what it's like now with feelings, and everyone can talk about feelings. And men, it's easier for men to talk about their feelings today than it was 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But they were still breaking down barriers back 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember my father evolving and sitting me down in many instances and saying, Kev, like if there's anything you need to talk about. They found one time, I was in 6th grade, they found a condom in my backpack.
Oh my God.
And they were like, I was not having sex. It was just a curiosity thing. Someone brought one in. Like I found this at my parents' house. Like it's a condom. Oh my God. And then I put it in my backpack and like completely forgot about it. And they sat me down and they're like, listen, we're not mad. We're not. We just want to, like, are you sexually active? They talked to me like very caring, very loving. I made it a safe place for me to share.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was society, what I was seeing, what I was witnessing on television, what I was witnessing with my friends in school, teachers. It was more, no, like men don't share their feelings.
Yeah.
No, just fucking lie to your parents. Don't tell them, don't. You don't have to. Like you could do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And I think society was really what I used to like blame my parents like for making it weird sitting down talking about a condom that was found in my backpack or something like that, when in fact they were just trying to really create a safe place.
Yeah.
So I was going back to share that because, when I went away to college, it was my first time having freedom as well. And breaking away from that. I don't have to worry about someone checking whether I was drinking alcohol or not when I get home.
Yeah. So you went buck wild.
I went buck wild.
Yeah.
And so did my roommate. My roommate got alcohol poisoning the first weekend.
Sounds like you two were perfectly paired.
Yeah, we were. We were. So to fast forward to go back to where we were before, now I need to start, I'm going to drug dealers to get pills. And I'm paying a lot of money. At this point, it's the prices of OxyContin have gone up because then they started to change the formula. So then they had the real ones that I was getting high off of. And then they started to make gel tablets, which were time released. Instead of it all hitting you at once, they made this gel where you couldn't abuse them.
Oh, okay.
So the demand for the real original ones were a lot higher. Then they started making generic ones, and the generic ones were good, but they weren't as strong as the original ones. So prices started to surge. Now at this point, I'm doing some just crazy shit. I'm taking out cash advances. I have like 10 credit cards. I owe 10 grand on this one, 20 grand on that one.
How old are you at this time?
24.
That's a lot. That's a lot to weigh on a 24-year-old.
24, maybe 25.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm now trying to keep up. I'm losing weight. I look sickly.
Mm-hmm.
I got to a point where they end up getting rid of OxyContin in 2011, 2012. They go off the market.
Okay.
And they have these things called Roxy Blues. They're 30 milligram pills. And it was like the next best thing behind OxyContin.
Was that a prescription?
You need a prescription for it.
Okay.
So now it's like 2012 into 2013. And I am in really bad shape. I meet a girl. I start dating this girl. I start living with this girl. This girl starts to see this raging pill problem that I have. And during this time, I want to say 2009, 2010 to 2013, I had tried going to, my cousin had gotten sober and clean.
Okay.
And his mom was my mom's sister. It was my aunt. She was talking to my mom, so-and-so goes to meetings. That's what helped him. Kevin, you should go to meetings. You should. And my parents saw signs here and there. And every time they would know, I would say, listen, I would admit to it. And I'd be like, no, I would come up with some kind of excuse, whatever, just to keep them off my back. So I had tried going to meetings a few times here and there.
Okay. So maybe a little seed was planted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 or 4 years, I would pop into a meeting here or there.
Oh.
When things would get really bad and my world would come crashing down, I would go to a meeting.
And would you kind of like rein it in for maybe a couple days?
So during this time, you could say that. During this time, I remember my first meeting that I walked into and a guy came up to me so happy. Just the glow in his face. You know the glow I'm talking about. And, hey, Kevin, what's your name? Kevin? Hi, I'm Bob. So nice to meet you. Just like his presence was known. And I remember saying, this guy, there is no way this guy is completely sober. 0% chance. You cannot be that happy in life without drugs or alcohol. There's no shot. He's on Xanax. He's on Valium. He's got to be on something. And he's not telling anyone. Because I couldn't fathom life. Yeah. I was in fear. I was scared not only of a detox, but I'm never going to be able to have fun again without drugs or alcohol. I'm just going to sit there with someone who hasn't drank or done drugs, both of us, and have a regular conversation. What are we going to talk about? There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, your whole identity was getting drunk or high.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. So fast forward, now it would get bad. I would go to a meeting and I'd get some things back in my life and then I would go right back out. I would go in. They would make suggestions in these meetings, find a sponsor. It was a 12-step program, do the work, go to meetings, call other people. You have 30 days, call someone who has 1 day, call someone who has 2 days. You could help someone, get a commitment. So what I would do is I would go to, there were 2 types of self-help meetings. I would go to one. I wouldn't drink alcohol, but I would use drugs. I wouldn't use opiates. I would stop opiates
Find something else.
and alcohol, but I would still smoke weed, take ecstasy, do coke.
Just a little recreational ecstasy.
Yeah, because the verbiage in that meeting was,
hey, it's just this or that.
Exactly. I wasn't completely abstinent from all mood or mind altering substances. So there's a reason I'm making a decision to still use other mood or mind altering substances. And that is because deep down, I have these issues that are just unresolved that I never dealt with. The symptom is the drug or the alcohol. And it could be gambling, could be sex, could be whatever it is.
The hole is still gaping.
Yes, exactly. So during this time, I am trying to work a program around my schedule and what's convenient for me. I'm going to meetings, but then I'm not getting a sponsor. Then I'm getting a sponsor. I'm not going to meetings. Then I am doing the work in the book by myself in one day to say I did the work and I'm good.
And you're still dabbling in things this whole time anyway.
Yeah, I'm still dabbling. Then I would go to the other fellowship and then drink, but just not do drugs. And like, just on my terms. And it would never work. I tried California sober, didn't work for me. It prolonged the misery. It created more unmanageability in my life. So fast forward to February 2013, I'm living with this girl. I calculated this. I spent $16,000 on pills in February of 2013.
In 1 month.
In 1 month.
$16,000.
$16,000.
How many pills is that?
That's a lot. I had like 20 to 30 pills a day. What I would do is—
That sounds like it would kill an elephant.
So I would wake up in the morning. I would do 10 30 milligram blues, Roxy blues.
You do 10 of them.
To get out of bed.
To wake up.
To wake up and get motivated to go to work. Then I would do 10. No, listen, this was a month long. It
is a miracle you are alive.
This wasn't my habit.
I know. This is when it's the worst. This is the bottom. This is towards the end.
This was not something that I did for years. This was something that I did for
But this is where
28
it took you.
days
This is
straight.
the level you got to. You're doing 10 of them. Okay.
So I go, I do 10 in the morning, 10 in the afternoon, and then 10 at night. That was my schedule. Sometimes if I couldn't get enough, I would do 5 for lunch just to get me through so there were no withdrawals. I looked so sickly, and it was people at work. I had a very good friend at work at this point, and he's like, Kevin, pulls me aside.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm telling you this. I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm telling you because I care. And I need to have a conversation with him because like this stands out. I never had a conversation with him to let him know that this conversation, like what he said to me really helped me. But he said, everyone at work knows. He's like, dude, you are bouncing off the wall because opiates used to give me energy.
Yes.
So I would like walk around to everyone's office. I'm like, politicking. Politician Kevin walking around the office. They used to have to tell me to sit down. Right before 10:30, 11 o'clock, I'm sleeping at my desk. Like nodding off.
So you're ready for your round of 10 more.
Then I do that. Then after lunch, I am talking to everyone again. And then by the end of the day, I'm nodding off again. And he said, people are talking about it. And listen, you do what you want. I'm just telling you.
What was it like hearing that, being on the receiving end of those words?
That was alarming. That was very alarming. And it's crazy because my parents would come to me all the time and be like, Kevin, we know, we see it. And I'm like, no, like I didn't try to justify it to him, this guy at work.
Yeah. You're finally like being seen.
And you know why? It's because my work is what I used to justify my drug and alcohol addiction for so long.
There you go.
That was what I used to get that artificial self-esteem. And when I would buy drugs and I knew what I was doing, I'd feel bad. And I would feel bad about what I was doing. I knew I was killing myself. God forbid I died. Like my family would be shattered. And I would still continue to push forward because I had such a good job. And then now the job was at risk. So I go home that day and I'm like flipping out. I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. I'm like, wow, like, am I going to get fired? Are they going to drug test me tomorrow? I don't know what to do. And it was crazy because I didn't tell anyone.
You didn't tell the girl that you were living with at the time?
No, she already knew I was using, but I didn't tell her what had happened at work.
Okay.
I was playing the denial game with her too.
Yeah.
So am in the city one day. I'll never forget this. I was in the city. My mom calls me. She goes, hey, me and your father, it was a Friday, me and your father are in the city. Let's go to dinner. I'm like, oh, cool. They're going to pay for dinner for me. Like, this is great. Let's go. She's like, your father just is talking to someone for work, like a client downtown in Union Square. Can you meet us down there? And then we'll go to dinner somewhere in Union Square. Okay, great. I go there. Mm-hmm. Oh, just in this building. Come up to the 7th floor. He's just wrapping everything up. The lady in the front will tell you what room we're in. I go up there. The lady was expecting me. And she brings me to the room. And it was an intervention. It was my parents and an interventionist. It was just 3 people. Wow. And I walked into my own intervention. And the guy introduced himself, and he took over. He was just like, hey, listen, I'm so-and-so. I'm clean and sober, 25 years. I still talk to this guy to this day, by the way.
Did you know immediately when you walked in what was happening?
Like yes, I did.
What's going through your mind in that moment?
Denial. How do I get out of this situation? How do I escape from this room? There's a show. This is crazy. You remember the Chappelle show?
Dave Chappelle?
Dave Chappelle had his own show. So he had this one character, Tyrone Biggums.
Okay.
And he gets intervention. He smokes crack. Yeah. And he gets intervention by like this family he's living with. And he goes into the bathroom and like he escapes. And I'm like, this is what's going through my head. I'm like, I got to escape like Tyrone Biggums right now, like crackhead thinking. And so I start to deny. And my parents like, listen, we love you. Like, we're not mad at you. We support you. Yeah. And then I start denying and denying and denying. And this guy stopped me dead in my tracks. And he said, Kevin, listen, you're going to continue to deny it and deny it and deny it. You and I both know. He's like, I'm cut from the same fabric you are. I know what's going on. Clearly. He's like, no offense, but you look like shit. I don't even know you and you look like shit.
Yeah.
You have burnt a lot of bridges. He just went on. And then he said, what are some things that you care about? And he listed them and he wiped them off the board. And he said, you're not going to have any of that if you continue doing what you're doing. And you're going to probably die in the next year. And then I just started crying. Yeah. He like spoke to me.
He just broke down.
And then at that point, I ended up going to Caron Treatment Facility in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing. I went into treatment there and I was ready at that point. I had already admitted now in front of my parents to this interventionist. And it wasn't actually even about my parents. It wasn't even about like admitting it to them. Like it was like the first time I admitted out loud to somebody. It could have been just anybody that I had a problem. And then I wasn't denying it anymore. And I was showing my true identity of who I was to these 3 people. Again, it was my parents and an interventionist, but it could have been anyone. I was showing who I really was to them. And they were still supporting me and they were still there for me and they were bringing me to rehab. I go to rehab. I stay there for 30 days. It was such an enlightening experience. I learned a lot about the disease of alcoholism. I learned about, because I didn't know, I just wasn't educated on. I went to meetings, never paid attention. Some of the stuff that they said in the rehab, I now hear in meetings. So I probably could have heard it in meetings if I listened earlier. And they did a phenomenal job of just teaching me about the disease and you know, what it's all about. What people that are staying sober do to stay sober. Surrendering. It's okay. You're loved. Community. Building the community. Building a sober community. What to do when you get out of here. Treatment facility. I ended up going into sober living in New York City. And I lived there for about 5 months. So I did about 6 months in treatment in total. I took 3 months off from work following the inpatient. And I guess to back up, before I went to rehab, I went I called my boss and gave him a heads up that I was going to go to rehab because you could take FMLA and just bounce.
Yeah.
And they can't ask any questions and you're protected. I called him and I just let him know. And he goes, thank God.
Wow,
He goes, I know. I know. Just go take care of yourself, man. And I had so much fear that if I leave the job for a month, they're going to fire me.
Yeah.
I'm a drug addict.
Wow.
Everyone's going to know my shtick. But I'm really and this guy respected me for taking a step to better myself and to break the chain and to go against what every drug addicts, I think the percentage that they stay sober, alcoholics and drug addicts, I think it's 90 something percent that they relapse.
Yeah. That radical honesty must have been so freeing with your boss.
It was so freeing.
Yeah.
And the support. Then HR called me. And this HR guy who knew my uncle. I don't want to tell. I can't go to HR. Like, they know my family.
Wow. Yeah.
I know what they're going to think about me. He knew my uncle.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't do that. Like, it's going to embarrass my whole family. He was like, Kev, I got you, man. It stays between us. Like, it's fine.
The people that love you just want you to be healthy.
Then that uncle I was scared about finding out.
Yeah.
He came and visited me at when I lived in the sober house. Like, and I was so scared that they were coming there with my parents, my aunt and uncle, and my cousin. And they were like, greeted me with love and I respect what you're doing. It's okay. Like, it's cool. You're not less than us because you do, you know? And then people pop out of the woodwork. Well, I had an issue with this and I did, like, everyone knows someone. So I live in this treatment, the outpatient. I start going to meetings. I really start to get zoned in. I do a 90 and 90. I go through all my steps. I get a sponsor. I start sponsoring people and I'm doing it. And I do it for about 2 years.
Okay.
My life, phenomenal. Things just take off. Relationships. I meet another woman in those 2 years. I broke up with that ex and that I was living with prior to getting clean and sober. And life is just amazing. I'm going on vacations with my sponsor, doing it, going to events, getting a commitment, helping others. Then things are just so good that I've been doing this so good for 2 years. I go into my third year of sobriety. I'm like, I could take the foot off the gas pedal a little bit.
Rested on your laurels.
And I start procrastinating. Then I start to break that consistent schedule of showing up. I break it a little bit. Instead of going to 5 meetings a week, I can go to 4 meetings a week. I can go to 3 meetings a week. I can go to just my home group every week and I'm good. Stop making amends. Next up, the financial amends to my school. I made a lot of my amends in, you know, in some self-help recovery programs. They encourage you to make a list of all people that you have harmed.
Become willing to make amends.
And become willing to make amends to them. And then the next step is taking the action and making amends. And I did all the ones that I could show up and be like, yeah, like, listen, you confronted me about cheating on you. I did cheat on you. I'm sorry. That's just an example of like
the low-hanging fruit.
The low-hanging fruit. And then there was a line between the low-hanging fruit and the big boy amends that I really needed to make. The financial amends. Did I really believe, was I really remorseful towards the families that I impacted when I was doing that book scheme back in college? Did I really feel bad for that? Would I really have prevented it? If so, you need to get on a payment plan with the college. You don't necessarily need to admit why you're doing it because you don't, legally, I didn't want to get caught back up and, but there are other ways that you can donate to the school to give back. I got to those, I stalled. And I stalled for 1.5 years. So now I'm at 3.5 years, I want to say abstinent. I hadn't picked up a mood or mind altering substance. I'm still going to meetings. I am. Still hanging out with the people that are in recovery because it's become my life. I'm working out in the gym one day
Mm-hmm.
and I'm bench pressing. I tear my rotator cuff again.
Same shoulder.
Same shoulder.
Oh.
And I go to the doctor.
Uh-huh.
Doctor says, Kevin, this will start to heal. It is highly recommended that you have surgery as soon as you can
Mm-hmm.
because it'll start to heal back, potentially could heal the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I got to go back. And I'm going to meetings and I'm like, listen, I'm having accountability. I'm going through the necessary steps, but there was work that I hadn't completed.
Yeah.
And I was taking my foot off the gas pedal. I wasn't spiritually fit.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't spiritually connected.
You're going through the motions, but you're not really.
To keep everyone off my back because I'm in denial. And it's almost like back to I knew I had a problem. No, I'll have the surgery. I know they're going to give me painkillers and I'll be able to pull myself out of it. I went to the doctor and said I had an opiate problem. Last time I had shoulder surgery, this is what happened. I don't want to take painkillers, but I'm going to leave it up to your discretion. That's what I said to him. And if you decide to give me painkillers, give them to my wife. I was married at the time. And during those 3.5 years, I got married. Like that's how good my life got. So I go get the surgery. They offer, so it's not an epidural. An epidural is when a woman is pregnant and they numb. You know, but it's something similar. I don't recall exactly what it was, but they gave me a shot right when I left the hospital that numbed my entire arm.
Like a Novocaine shot, maybe?
I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it was a numbing shot that numbed my entire arm.
Okay.
I felt no pain in my shoulder, and shoulder surgeries are very painful.
Okay.
And I was good for 24 hours. That wore off. Honey, I need Percocets. They gave me 5 milligram Percocets.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 1 to 2 every 4 to 6 hours. I went to my wife every 4 hours for 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
I am in pain. Give me 2, please. Now, she had no idea how bad it really was prior to. She never knew how bad I was. She also didn't grow up in the US. So she had no idea about really the pill epidemic in the US and what it had done and just the severity. She had no idea. And long story short, I end up full blown going out back to my old ways. And there was a point when I left the hospital when they said, hey, do you want to come back for a week straight every day? We're willing to give you, I know you said you had a problem with painkillers. We'll give you this shot once a day for the next 7 days because that's when the pain is the worst. And I said, no, thank you.
So you kind of had the option to opt out of the pills.
Yeah.
They were giving you the out there, but your mind was already made up.
Yep. The relapse started way before I even had this, way before I even hurt my shoulder at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm now out ripping and running. My now ex-wife, the irony, my ex-wife now is my wife at the time. She has never seen anything like this in her entire life. I'm going out. I am not coming home until late hours. I'm running around like a maniac. I'm on the street getting pills. I'm trying to go back to meetings. I would get a week. I would get 2 weeks. I would get a month. Relapse, back and forth, back and forth. For about a year, I tried to get sober. I couldn't do it. So fast forward, it's February 2018. February is just not my month. February 2018, it gets cold in New York. It's the weather like fucked me up in New York.
Yeah,
I live in
dark.
Florida now, obviously, and it's so much better. But February 2018, I can't get pills one day. And my now ex-wife was traveling for the week for work. And I call this dealer. He doesn't have pills. He's out of town. Do you know anyone? Yeah, I know this guy. I don't know him too well. He's up in the Bronx. You can go meet with him if you want. I'll call ahead if you'd like. Yeah, call him. Connect me with him. Me and this dude connect. I go up. He's like, listen, you're going to come on my block. Just play cool, you know? I'll come out. I'll meet you. I think I got 20 or 30 Roxy pills, the blue 30s. I pull up. It's a madhouse. And everyone's out looking at me. I am the minority on the block.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy comes out, flags me down. So I'm so-and-so. Nice to meet you. Awesome. Here's the money. Here are the pills. Boom. I'm out. I hit the FDR. Driving south. I'm going back to my house. I lived on the Upper East Side at the time. And I take 2 or 3 pills out of the bag because I started to go through withdrawal and I needed them as soon as possible. And I threw them in my mouth. And when I threw them in my mouth, pills stay whole for a little bit. They don't melt and disintegrate right away. These, I put them in my mouth and they just evaporated. It was weird. It was very weird. And I knew something was up. Something was wrong.
Yeah.
And I didn't give a fuck. I just took my water, drank them. I leave. The next thing I remember is waking up the next day in my bed, pocket full of cash, like a million missed calls, tons of text messages. The guy from the Bronx, the dealer, don't ever effing call me again. You're cut off from this block. Like, don't ever come here again. Blah, 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 blah. The guy who hooked me up with him. What'd you do? What happened? Da, 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 da. The whole nine. So to fill you in, and I was reminded from people, from witnesses, statements, that certain things that had happened.
Yeah.
So when I was driving home, I took the pills.
Okay.
The pills turned out to be fentanyl pills.
Wow.
And I made it home. I got to my house. I called this guy and I was like, I'm coming back up. These pills are not what you sold me, blah, blah, blah. He's like, don't come up, don't come up, don't come up. I end up going up anyways. I go there. I'm laying on my horn on this block. He comes out, gives me my money back. I give him the pills. Now, a drug dealer will never allow you to go back and give you your fucking money back. He knew this guy. Like, I was very good friends with the guy that connected us.
Yeah.
I think that was the only reason he didn't A, kill me, or B, give me my money back. So, not give me my money back. So, I got the money back. I drive back a second time back to my apartment on the FDR. I hit another car.
Oh.
Total the car, my car, their car, both totaled. It was a couple.
Were they okay?
Yeah, they were completely fine. They didn't leave in an ambulance, thank God. I get out. I start running.
You're running
on foot
on the FDR.
The FDR, you know the FDR. You're from New York. You can't just hop a median and then like you're on grass and like go into civilization. There are walls on the FDR. Like there are like 20, 30 foot high walls. I ran to an exit, got off the exit, running on foot, and then went back to my apartment. Now, I'm not going to get into it for certain reasons, but there was someone that I knew that I connected with when I got back to my apartment who went to the scene of the accident, and because the couple that I had hit did not go and leave in an ambulance, they didn't get hurt. They were able to turn my license over and say like they were with me. They were freaked out about the accident, whatever. And then they filled out the police report. No one left. I had to obviously compensate for the vehicles. Mine was a rental car and I did not have insurance on it. Yeah, it was a disaster. And I didn't have a car in New York City, so I had no insurance.
So did you rent this car just so you could go to the Bronx?
I had a work thing that I was doing in Westchester or something the day before, and I still had the car. I got home late the night before, and I still had the car the next day. So this was like, I got sober 2 weeks later. 2 or 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of February. I got sober February 19th. This was I used for 2 more weeks after it. This scared the life out of me after finding out, not having control, there have been many times that I had control, but like off of fentanyl, I never experienced anything like that in my life. And I could have gone into an overdose and not gone all the way to the point where I stopped breathing and then the oxygen was cut off into my brain and then I became a vegetable. I could have overdosed and then like came out of it. I don't know exactly what had happened. And the fear of not being in control, what it did to me, it scared me straight. Mm-hmm. I end up getting intervention again. Thank God. Mm. It scared me straight. Well, I knew I wanted to quit soon, but we tell ourselves that all the time.
Yeah.
Was this the absolute last run-in with death, near run-in with death? I don't know. I don't know if I would have continued using if I wasn't intervention, but my whole family got back together again. I got interventioned. And I remember at the end of the intervention, my father said to me, Kevin, you need to go away. I said, I'm not going away. I can go to meetings. I can stay sober. Let me do this. He looks at me and says, you're not going to be able to stay sober unless you go away. And I said, give me one chance. Get off my back. Give me one chance. If you want to drug test me and you think I'm using, if I don't take the drug test, that's a fail. That's an automatic fail. If I take the drug test and fail, I will go away to rehab. No questions asked. You have my word. I go to a meeting the next day, stay sober for 20 days. Mm-hmm. I'm at my house. Mm-hmm. I get a sponsor. I get a commitment. I'm doing it. And like, I'm gung-ho right now. And I'm like, but it's all pride. It's like, I'm going to show my father.
Yes.
That mother effer, he doesn't know me. I'm going to, it was pure pride. Mm-hmm. Ego. So pride and ego only last you so long. Mm-hmm. 20 days sober. I'm at home with my wife at the time and I get an urge to use. We walk out to my elevator. We're about to get on the elevator. And I said to her, listen, I don't know why I'm telling this. I probably shouldn't be, but I want to get high right now. And if you let me walk out that door downstairs, I'm going to find a way to break away from you and I'm going to get high.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my God. Like telling like a non-addict or alcoholic. She goes, but she was great actually. And I'm so grateful for her and what she did in that situation and the shit she put up with. But she said, what do they teach you in meetings? And I said, call someone. She goes, call your sponsor. I call my sponsor. My sponsor was sitting down to Sunday dinner with his family. It was probably 7:00. Mm-hmm. And I call him and he's like, dude, where are you? I'm at home. There's a Starbucks down the street from your house on 3rd Avenue. Meet me there in 15 minutes. Have your wife walk you down and stay with you until I get there. Then I'll relieve her. I go. He leaves family dinner with his family on 7:00 on a Sunday night, meets me at the Starbucks, relieves my wife, go home. You've had enough to deal with. He sits with me. Now we went, Starbucks I think closes at like 9 or 10. We went to the diner. He sat with me until 1 a.m. Until the feeling passed. The urge of wanting to use. It was the first time a thought came into my head, an urge, and I didn't act on it. Every time I had an urge, I would impulsively just act on it. The feeling passed. The urge passed. He drove me home. You okay to go home? Yeah. Okay. Brings me home. Picks me up for a meeting the next day, early, before work. Mm-hmm. I'm going to a meeting with you every single day this week and you're going to share in all of those meetings and you're going to say exactly what you went through and what you're doing now to get through what you're going through because there's probably someone there with 1 or 2 days that wants to use and you're going to share your experience. I did it. All of these people were coming up to me. And now I declared a home group at day one. It was a men's meeting, but I didn't really know anyone. After that week, everyone knew exactly who I was, what my day count was. I finally felt a part of.
Oh.
And I can tell you, this is going to sound crazy. I have not had one single urge since that 20-day mark when I wanted to pick up.
That's such a miracle.
And that's when my sobriety journey really took off. And I've been sober ever since. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Those first 30 days are so important. They're so pivotal. What would you say to someone listening who's in their first 30 days right now that gets a thought like you did.
Yeah. Call someone. Tell someone. The pain of picking up the phone and telling someone that you want to get high or drunk in the long run is minimal compared to the pain you are going to feel. It's going to be a relief if you pick up a drug or a drink and act on it, on that urge. But the pain is going to be so much greater down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Pick up the phone and call someone. Now, the reason I had to ask my wife at the time, but the reason it was so easy to call my sponsors because I called my sponsor every day for those first 20 days. He told me, call me every day. I called him every single day. So the action of the phone call wasn't all that outlandish for me.
Yeah, you're already in a habit of doing it.
Yes.
And maybe that's why your sponsor said, call me every day.
Yes.
For that exact moment, because he knew it would come.
Yes.
Because it often does.
So I'm actually talking to the person who's just getting sober.
Mm-hmm.
Follow all of the suggestions that are given to you in your community, in your sober, clean community. Follow all the suggestions because you're planning for contingencies down the road that you don't even know are going to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And because I took a certain suggestion, I just needed to be guided. And it would have been easier to relieve that urge, but I would have had an urge the next day because when I pick up, drink or a drug, I don't have an option the next day.
Yeah.
So it's taking the suggestions from day one, not waiting 30 days. I'm going to shop around for a sponsor. I'm going to see what meetings I like. I don't really know yet. I'm just testing the waters to feel this out a little bit. Jump in there like you're chasing the next drink or a drug.
So that was 30 days. Now you're at almost 7 years. Life still happens. You know, how do you handle, let's say, maybe anxiety? Like if you have a stressful situation or maybe you get bad news. Let's say, how do you handle bad news? A relative is sick. How would you have reacted before you got sober? And how do you react now?
So the biggest difference between, let's call it my first year of sobriety to now is awareness. It's one of the greatest gifts that was given to me in sobriety. And through awareness and having awareness, I'm able to identify and education through, I go to therapy. Therapy enabled me to learn about emotions and understand everyone's emotions are different. Understanding my emotions. My first year, I was not as aware as I am now. I mean, I was a little aware. I put down drugs and alcohol. I wasn't fogged anymore.
Yeah.
But it was still a little chaotic. And I wasn't able to fully identify the emotion that was any emotion, really. I mean, I knew sad, I knew happy. That, that was really it. Or at least that I could feel and say with conviction, I am going through this. But it was, I would just impulsively act on an emotion. So acting on that urge, almost like I just talked about at 20 days, I would act on an emotion right away and worry. Something catastrophic happened in my life the first year. I would just be like, oh my God, the world's going to end. It's all over. My boss could give me this award one day, best employee. Then the next day he looks at me the wrong way. I'm like, oh my God, he hates me. Like I need to start looking for another job. I need to start, or like, family member passes away. Oh my God. Like in my head, this is going to be crazy. Today, I'm able to identify emotions and what I do with those emotions, I channel those emotions. And I'm not saying don't feel sadness. I'm not saying don't feel jealousy. I'm not saying don't feel anxiety, like anxious nerves and wanting to feel sad about it or less than about a certain situation. It's okay to feel those feelings, but it's also a necessity to know that those feelings and those emotions are temporary.
Mm-hmm. So you identify them. You acknowledge that they're temporary. Once you've done those two things, what is the next step you take to maybe pull yourself out of it?
Play the tape through.
Okay. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I would say first year of sobriety, and it happens now sometimes. I think the world is ending based off of I received this is an example. Last week, I received some news about my business that, could impact revenue. I'm like, oh my God, the world's over. I need to leave podcasting and do something else and et cetera, et cetera. It's going to greatly impact my life. And in turn, I'm not going to be able to get a house. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to, put my daughter through private school. This is what, I am able to pull myself out of that and realize that I have been in this situation so many times. I'm always taken care of. I also have the option to take action today. I'm not paralyzed by drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
I'm not a slave to drugs and alcohol. I can take action. I can do anything sober and create new opportunities that are going to create new sources of revenue. So I can feel an emotion, but I limit the time that I feel it. And I have a sober community. I call people that I trust that will give me good advice. I don't get too many opinions. I used to do that. I used to get like 100 opinions. And then until I heard what I wanted to hear. And then, it's the end of the world again. But I have a support system.
Okay.
I have the awareness. And I immediately take action. And I also, this is big, and it may not be correlated to solving that problem directly that I talked about with my business that happened last week. I called someone with 10 days sober that I met at a meeting.
You were of service to someone else.
And he took me for a ride on the phone. And
maybe your problems aren't so bad in comparison
and
to
it
someone.
stopped me. And I'm not saying feed off of the newcomer. No, his life is so much worse, but it made me grateful because I was there at one point. And it was like, wait a minute, look at this life you've built over the last 7 years. It's okay. You're going to be fine. So those are the actions I take.
That's great. Gratitude.
Yeah.
So important. So powerful. You've grown so much, right? Over the last 7 years. What are you still working on?
Everything. One of the biggest things that I have to be reminded of on a daily basis that I'm still working on is, and I have to stay aware of this, putting in measures to hold myself accountable. It's funny. I just built this new studio. And I know if I would start it, maybe just set up a camera, hang a curtain, one light, I'll just sit on it. And I'll just sit on it and sit on it. So I told someone all about this studio I built. This is probably the healthiest way. No, it's not. But about this new studio I built, and I booked him for the following week to come in to be on my show as a guest in the studio. Well, now I have a deadline that I need to meet. That was a way of holding myself accountable. The following through. I talked about being the king of half measures. Following through on things is huge. And that's part of holding yourself accountable.
Yeah.
Self-accountability for me, that is a huge one. Not having a guest, to hold me accountable because I booked him for the following week and I need to have the studio done. But structure in my life today,
Yeah.
that's self-accountability and sticking to it and following through on it. Yeah.
So you have a sponsor, you are of service to other people, you have accountability measures in place. What are some other things that are maybe not necessarily like recovery, but other things that you do that you have figured out for you as a whole impact like mind, body, spirit for like living mentally free and mentally healthy? I don't know if it looks like nutrition or if you work out, or what are some other things that you incorporate into your day-to-day life?
Yeah. So it is in sobriety, but it's kind of not. I mean, it is, but meditation.
Oh.
Meditation's big for me.
Yeah. How do you meditate?
So
A lot of people don't know how.
Yeah. So when I meditate, it's very basic.
Okay.
If I'm driving, I can't close my eyes, but if I'm not, and I have to do it sometimes driving because I sometimes get in a very chaotic place in my head.
Okay. And life is busy. Life
is
big.
busy. I breathe in, I focus on one area of my body and my left arm.
Mm-hmm.
And when I breathe out, I let go of the muscle in my left arm. I mean, I actually, with driving, I think I do my legs or whatever. I don't like, I do like my core, my neck. I rest it on the headrest, my chest. Okay. Now I'm like, relax my chest. And I do every area of my body. And then before you know it, I have completely forgotten about what had happened, like what I'm stressing about.
Mm-hmm.
And I start to become centered and I'm down to reality. And then the gratitude starts to kick in. I list things in my head that I'm grateful for. And it brings me back to a sense of just being great. It helps. I break down, right? I break down, get back down to just a state of zen and calmness, and then build it back up by listing things in my head that I am grateful for. And then it shifts my whole perspective on everything. Another major tool is working out. It is something, so I've always worked out my whole life. Lifting weights has always been something that I've done, whether it's 2, 3, 4 times a week. It helps release endorphins. One of the biggest game changers for me, and it's something that I've implemented into my workout routine every week, is running. I picked that up during COVID because all the gyms were closed.
Yeah.
So I was living in New York City in 2020 and I started running, with a mile. I actually started with a half a mile. I could barely run a half a mile. Then it was a mile. I mean, I was an athlete my whole life.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't. I was so out of shape, fearful of starting to run. And then I was like, you know what? Small wins.
Yeah.
Small wins. And I would do that. I would then do a mile, then 2 miles, 3 miles. I mean, I could run 5 miles today, pretty much no problem. And that has really shifted a lot of things in my head. It sets the tone for the day if I do it in the morning. Do I do it every morning? No, I would like to do it every morning, but even at the end of the day, it helps you decompress from a very stressful day. Cold plunge and sauna is huge for me. I like to do sauna for about 10, 15 minutes. Then I go into the cold plunge, then sauna again, cold plunge again. It clears my mind. Whatever I'm going through, whatever stress I'm going through, it just completely clears my mind. Another huge thing for me is I started doing, I knew about this early in sobriety, but I've really, I would say in the last 2 years, started to take advantage of this. I start my day with small wins. There's something in the brain that making your bed.
Yeah.
Going and making a phone call, calling your sponsor, calling a recovering alcoholic addict, or even someone in need in your life.
Yeah.
Someone's going through something, checking in, making breakfast, doing 20 push-ups early in the morning, just small accomplishments. There's something in the brain when you have these small accomplishments, whether it's 3, 4, 5 things that you do in the morning, you start to, it steamrolls and it sets the tone for the rest of the day. so that bigger accomplishments don't seem as big.
Esteemable acts build self-esteem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Esteemable acts do build self-esteem.
Those are a lot of really good tools that you just listed out.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate a higher power into your life?
Through pain.
Okay. What does that mean?
Yeah. So I always believed in God.
Okay.
When I went into sobriety, they talk about a higher power.
Yeah.
I was scared of that.
Okay.
They're a cult. Like, what are they trying to do to me? It's not, in fact, that at all. It's a spiritual program that I go to. And
because we're spiritual beings.
Right. So I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was going through something and it seemed like the end of the world and I had nowhere to turn. And I didn't want to pick up the phone. Or no, it was the middle of the night. I couldn't call anyone. Everyone's sleeping in the middle of the night. I didn't have all the tools readily available to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting on my knee. I would never get on my knees and surrender to anything. Getting humble in the beginning and admitting I have a problem is cool enough. Like I'm not getting on my knees to pray. I got on my knees, I prayed, and it was purely, God, do this for me, do that for me, make me feel this way, not grant me the strength, give them peace and forgiveness in their life, help them. It was all me. But whatever, it is what it is. It got me to start believing in something again.
Yeah.
Because I diverted for a while with the drugs and alcohol. So that's how I reestablished a connection with God. And it's used for that. Like there are a lot of times, like you're in situations as someone in recovery where you're in a bad spot and you can't make that phone call. You can't get to a meeting. You can't be of service. Your phone's out of service. Whatever it is. You don't have a car. You got to be able to have that tool. And that's a higher power. Something to tap into when those other tools aren't readily available.
Yeah. That's when you remember a higher power is always with you. Yeah. We're never alone. Would you say that you love yourself fully now?
Yeah. So over the past 7 years, I would say my first 4 years of sobriety, it was that cycle again where it was, I went through the book and self-help program. And I got to that point in sobriety where
life's good.
Life's good, but amends. And I made the low-hanging, whatever new amends I needed to make during that year I went out and whatever. My ex-wife, that was easy, and I could clearly see I was wrong there. And, I was able to do those things. But when it came to financial amends, I knew that I had to make it. And I knew damn well in my head that's what took me out the last. That was from what I can remember, it was one of many things, but that was one of the major things. And I had to get on payment plans. And listen, I'm not here to say I don't pay a ton. I'm not here to say that I'm doing this and I'm doing no.
No, it's not being perceived that way.
You
surrendered to this big monster that you had to chip away at a little bit every day.
There's something about me, and it's alcoholics with finances. And for me, it was no, I'm not giving. I'll wait this one out, and I'll.
That's why it's in the promises. Financial fears will escape you because people come in to recovery with so much financial fear.
So you asked, do I love myself today? I started to do that financial amends process. I got it all started and still doing it today about 3 years ago. I was also going through a life-changing event. Me and my ex were getting a divorce. And I had hit a rock bottom. There was a lot going on. We have a 5-year-old daughter together, and it would kill me that she was 2 at the time. I'm a single dad with my daughter, and I'm not giving her that family camaraderie to come home to. And she's bouncing back and forth. And I felt so guilty. And it's crazy because I think my connection with God really made it clear to me that it was the financial amends, Kevin. Like, you want to get to the next level. Like, that's what you need to do. And I did it. And
You intuitively knew.
have been able to get to a place. It's like there are different levels in recovery. Yeah, you take the drugs and alcohol out. Yeah, you start doing the steps. Yeah, you go through the steps. There are different levels. And I hit that 5-year mark that everyone talks about.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't necessarily say that I loved myself the first 5 years. There were a lot of changes and stuff going on. But I will say that in the past 2.5 to almost 3 years, I have loved myself because I have taken full responsibility for the wrongs that I did. And I can look myself in the mirror today and I have no regrets. I have no, like, there are people that I've wronged, and today I'm trying to help people. Like, I'm genuinely trying to help people so that they don't make the same mistakes that I do. And that's how I've come to love myself.
Do you have any final parting words of advice? Full picture: sobriety, mental fortitude, being a man of integrity. Like a couple things. What would you tell someone that is coming to you? Like, how do I become a man of integrity?
You become a man of integrity of taking a hard, honest look at yourself and your intentions and who you are, admitting and truly seeing selfishness inside of yourself. And I'm not saying not everyone's selfish. I'm just saying that is a common denominator amongst
Everyone's selfish.
Yeah. It's okay to ask for help. For so long, I was afraid to ask for help because I was so scared of what people were going to think about me. And there was so much fear around asking for help. And the recognition that I got in high school for playing sports. Now in college, I wasn't playing sports anymore. I morphed it to getting these very prestigious internships that one of them I turned into a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I was going to make it big and I was going to do all of these big things. And I had all this pressure on myself that, ego, pride, the list goes on. Kevin's not weak. The weak is not asking for help. The right thing and the stronger thing to do is to ask for help because people will respect you more. But I mean, most importantly, you should want to take care of yourself. You're doing the best thing for yourself. And you need to put yourself first before anyone. I was putting a lot of people and a lot of things ahead of myself for a very long time. And that was like people pleasing, just so many different things that I was doing to put, and it didn't happen overnight. It took time in sobriety for me to really recognize those things and take action and, break those habits. But, yeah, it all started with asking for help. It is okay to ask for help. Just tell someone.
That was really great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for hosting this and sitting down with me and celebrating 7 years with me. And it was awesome. Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.